I am Ann-Peggy Divine. Welcome to the Divine Design, the podcast where we unfold heaven on earth and reframe spirituality and theology for a new cosmic era. Your journey on human evolution and integration of your divine design starts here. As a quiet extension of what I'm sharing here, you may have heard me speak about the architecture series. These books are now available for those who feel ready to go deeper. The architecture of light, the architecture of future medicine, the architecture of the living ethos, the architecture of peace, the architecture of karma, the architecture of sisterhood. Alongside these, 2 trilogy volumes brings the series together. The Architecture of Life, Trilogy 1, and The Architecture of Humanity, Trilogy 2. Each book explores a different aspect of how life organizes itself when survival patterns are no longer in control, and a new architecture begins to emerge. If you feel resonance, you can find them on Lulu and on my websites, divinedesign.it and anpeggydivine.com. Namaste. Welcome, Ole Høyer, to this Divine Design podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I saw you posted something on your profile. We have been friends on Facebook, even though we haven't met. We have some common friends. And I have seen you, and I know that you are from Denmark, our neighbor country. And you posted a status about Ole Lama. And it was such a touching text you gave him, because he died 18th of May.
Yes.
Yeah. And I got curious, who is this Ole Lama that really touched your life? And so I asked you, do you want to say something about Ole Lama on a podcast? And you said yes. So thank you.
Of course. I'll be happy to share about him and you know how I met him and the experiences I've had with him and also how he in many ways changed my life back in 2003 when I met him the first time, you know.
Yeah, and I don't know anything about him, so Lama, it's something maybe he have taken.
Yeah, so again, you know, I'm not a details in terms of his story, but what I do know is that, and he's called Ole Nydahl, right? So it's Lama Ole Nydahl. He's from the Kamakaju lineage, right? So there are different lineages in the Tibetan Buddhism, right? And he's from the Kamakaju lineage, and we call it the Diamond Way Buddhism. And for example, you know, Dalai Lama also have a lineage in Tibetan Buddhism that is called Gelugpa, right? So we have different paths in Tibetan Buddhism. I don't want to go into the details of all that, but just so you get an understanding. And I would say our way of practicing Buddhism is very direct. It's very experiential, and it's very much connected to the transmissions from the teachers that you listen to and you meet, and you come to big events, you meditate together, and they give you different blessings, right? So we have a very what I love about Diamond Way Buddhism is that it's very practical and it's very direct, you know. So you are allowed to do a lot of these things, transmissions you get from the Buddhist lamas, and the type of meditations that you also embark on, without necessarily having theoretically to study. for years before you're allowed to go to that next level. I think that is very much what, at least from my perspective, makes it different from Diamond Way Buddhism and, for example, Gelugpa and some of the other Tibetan paths that are in Buddhism. And I met Lama Ole Nydahl back in 2003. It was interesting because I had a friend who wanted me to go to Nepal. And at that time, I didn't have time to go to Nepal. I was in Australia for quite a while, and I ended up. He sent me so my friend Christian. He sent me a link to a guy, and he said, "Oh, but this guy that I'm gonna learn from in Nepal, he's actually on a retreat in Brisbane, Australia." And I was just passing by Brisbane. This is always what happens for me,
Yeah.
Right? So you're probably familiar with all that.
Yeah.
With what I can see, what you work with and everything, right? So of course I drop in on that retreat, and it was over a weekend, and it was silent. I had no experience whatsoever about Buddhism or meditation, and I remember coming there, and then there was also a guided meditation at the moment of death and so on. It was quite like confronting, and but it also it made me very calm and realize many things as I went through that weekend. And as I come back home to Denmark, I was so excited because there was a Lama from that lineage, which was the Gelugpa, the Dalai Lama lineage. And there was a Tibetan Lama in Denmark. And I was like, wow, I get to meet a Tibetan Lama in Denmark. I go to his session and I get so disappointed. I had zero connection. Everything he spoke was in Tibetan. His Danish wife was translating with a pace where you just like, after 5 minutes, you got really irritated. And I could barely stay there for an hour. And I left and I was so disappointed, from that experience. And I was searching at that time in my life. And my ex-girlfriend at that time worked in a sandwich shop. And, I was in between jobs. And there were really good sandwiches, in the middle of Copenhagen. So I would often go there. And one day I come in, I look up and I see this tanker, a Buddhist hand-painted. It was kind of in a frame, right? And I said, "Oh, it's a tanka in a frame." And then I asked her, "Are they Buddhists? The owners of the cafe you were?" And she said, "Yeah, they're Buddhist." And then at the same time, a guy came in and he said, "Oh yeah, I'm also a Buddhist. And we have this center in Copenhagen, and there's a Danish Lama, and he's called Ole." And I was like, really, really suspicious, right? So, and I ended up going out there, and it was out here actually close to where my office is now in Strandvejen in Hellerup. And it's on Svanemøllevej. It's a beautiful building. It's where all the embassies are. And I think Lama Ole bought the building back in '73, and it was his first center that he built in the Diamond Way Buddhism. And I came out in that center, and it completely blows you away. You come in, they're like hand-painted, images from all the Tibetan lamas and, all the animals and the whole story of Buddhism when you come in the entrance, in the hallway. And then when you go into the meditation hall, everything is also like hand-painted on the walls by some of the best Buddhist hand painters from our lineage, right? And people live there, right? So I found out it was a big community where people live there, they practice, and then teachers will come and, give lectures, and there would be also people in the house would train others to, if you want to come and you're interested in Buddhism, you can get an introduction, and then you can start to be a part of the path, right? So that's kind of how and then I met him out in the center. And immediately when I met him, I was like, wow, this is a very, very powerful man. And the story is that he went with, Ole was he was a wild man. I mean, like he was a boxer back then. I mean, he would kind of he would go boxing for money, kind of a little bit undercover on the black market, right, and earn his money through that. And he was also into drugs and LSD and all these things back in the days.
Wow.
And at some point, him and Hannah, his wife, his amazing wife, who was also a Lama and one of the incredible, she was very connected to all the Lamas because her Tibetan was amazing. So she could translate and she could transmit, from all these incredible Buddhist teachers that are part of our lineage. So I think it was in the 70s they went out traveling in the East, and they met the 16th Karmapa. And the 16th Karmapa is, so we say we have, now there's the 17th, right? But they're supposed to be enlightened being, and it has been one after the other. So one reincarnation after the other. I think Dalai Lama is the 14th in his lineage. And I think there was a break at some point. So there's been no break in our lineage, meaning that the transmissions from 17, reincarnated Buddhist Lamas, lineage holders, has been passed on since the first one came, right? And it's those teachings that are so incredibly powerful and that we practice in Diamond Way Buddhism. So Ole meets the 16th Karmapa, and for 3-4 years they travel with him. The 16th Karmapa introduced him to all the big lamas out in Tibet and Nepal and wherever they are, India. And at some point and there's a lot of stories around, also how big of a transition and transformation it was from Ole, right, at that time. Going from what he was to then what he became. And I think after 3-4 years, and again, though I do not know all the details precisely, but I'm just telling the story as good as I can, right?
Yeah.
He came back home to, the 16th Karmapa sent him back and said, now it's time for you to spread Buddhism to the Western world. And this is what he did. And I get goosebumps when I talk about it because he was such a powerhouse. Like he would travel. He would constantly travel. So Ole traveled for I think around 40 years, nonstop. He barely slept.
Yeah.
And he established, I think, 650 Buddhist centers around the world.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, the Dalai Lama, everyone else, there's no one that is even close to do what he did.
Ole Lama did, you said?
Yeah. He established that. He was the powerhouse and the vehicle of that. And so what would happen would typically be some places. There's a really good story in Switzerland where there was this incredible building in Seefeld. Seefeld is one of the most wealthy areas in Zurich. It's 2 minutes from the lake. And I can tell you, because I spent quite some time in Switzerland, I've also been living quite, different places in the world. And one of them was Switzerland, Zurich. And I stayed at the Buddhist Center. I was very connected to them as I was living there for around 1 year. And at that time, there was an old woman back in the days that allowed the Buddhists to use her garage as a meditation center.
Yeah.
So they opened up in that garage a meditation center, and the Buddhist thought at that time that she was just renting one of the flats, and then she had access to that garage. And what happens is, they started, and again, maybe someone will say, "Oh, these are not all the right teachers," but I think you at least get get the story as I was being told. At some point, this lady, she gets sick, and all the Buddhists, they take care of her. Like they come and they support her and they're there for her. At some point, this woman dies.
Okay.
And she ends, it's her that owns the entire building. And she ends up donating the building to Buddhism.
Wow.
Right? So there are all these, and I could probably, I would imagine there are 50 stories like that. At least there's a lot of stories where, people, there was an very interesting story with they wanted to buy a big retreat land in the US, somewhere in the US. I cannot remember exactly where it was. But we have, some retreat land in Colorado. We have different places in the US and beautiful land. And at some point they were buying a piece of land. I think it was the one close to New York, upstate New York. And this man who ended up selling it to the Buddhists, he had been preparing the land for the last few years, and he was not really sure what he was preparing it for. And his wife were a little bit like, he's working his ass off to prepare this land. And then when the Buddhists came and bought it, he realized, oh, that's what he had been preparing it for. So there are all these incredible moments, you experience when you are part of the lineage and you're connected to the big lamas, that you cannot explain it other than it happens, right? And that's also why I felt the urge to really share that part of the story about Lama Ole, because I had these moments where he had this gao, this round, beautiful, typically it would be gold or different, and he would put parts of some of the things from the 16 karma part would be in that. So, and when he places it on you on different parts of your body, something happens you cannot explain. But it's a very, very, very powerful energy. And often when you get a blessing from him, you walk away, and I tell you, it's not a good idea to go out in the traffic 10, 20 minutes after or half an hour after, because you're a little bit spaced out, And, I tell you, it was so beautiful because even my mom, she went to Ole a few times, and at some point, there was always this long queue, and at some point we were in Copenhagen, and my mom, she wanted to go, and I said, Mom, I mean, it's a little bit of it's a long queue, and I need to travel to New York or something. I think I had to go to New York the day after. And she just looked at me, and she didn't answer me. She just went over in the queue. And then I could see afterwards, I talked to her, and so I said, Mom, how was it? She was like, it was lovely. And she was in a different world, right?
Yeah.
So these transmissions and these connections you have with Ole, and also now the 17th Karmapa, which is in his 40s. I'm following him, and I meet him in India once a year. I thought I need to get closer to him, so I've started to also collect a lot of money for his school in India. So he has an incredible school up in Kalimpong, where you can now go and visit, and you can do your Buddhist practice, and through also Buddhist connections and all that, and companies, we have collected a lot of money for the school, where he take all the young monks, and he gives them the opportunity. They don't wear the robes or anything. They go as normal students in normal clothes, and then when they're around 13, 14, they get all the Buddhist practices, but also the really good teachings from a German lady who runs the school, and then they can decide at that time, right? So I've been also very close to, after Ole started to get older, right? Because he did get old, and the last few years, people said, he still had the power, but he also had dementia. It's very obvious, right? And you can say, I think it was all planned out, because a lot of people had a strong connection to him. And in Buddhism, you're not supposed to identify with the person.
Yeah.
But a lot of people did. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of people were asking Ole for advice for everything, and he would give advice.
Yeah.
And I love that about him. But it also created a little bit of a challenge, I think, for some people. So I think it was all a part of the plan that he got, whether we call it dementia, let's just call it dementia, right? Because I think that's what it was. And that also forced some of the students that were too, connected to him as a person to realize that it's within themselves, right? But of course, when you've had all these experiences with him, and Ole was, he was wild. Back in the days, we would go to Spain. We had this incredible Buddhist center there where we'd be 3,000 people from all over the world. And he was one of the masters of giving povas, which is this transmission at the moment you die, where we talk about going on automatic pilot, where we call it the body and the mind, but really the conscious separate from the body. And we talk about in Buddhism that the more effortless and fearless you can leave your body, the better possibility you have for whether it's to land in what we call the pure land. Maybe you stay there, maybe you get enlightened in that moment, or you come back, and you come back to a good reincarnation, right? So he made that transmission, which is absolutely incredible. It's a very sacred meditation you do, but it's a beautiful experience, and you end up getting a little hole up here in your skull, which also is like, I was like, what is this all about? We work with the inner energy channel, and he goes and check after the course, and you're not allowed to wash your hair for the first time you do it, right? And then you get that transmission. So when my mom passed away, I was able to actually give her that transmission because she wanted to be, I said, Mom, I'll send you to a good place, right? So for me to be able to do that because I got the transmission was absolutely incredible. So that was really his power. He gave a lot of these progress. So we would be 3,000 people. And then after 4 days of meditation, at that time, we were even drinking alcohol. We stopped that, some years after, but he would...
Did he ever write a book? Yeah. Did he ever write a book, or did he only practice? Because it looks like he was only practicing. No books, just practicing, just being the example.
No. He's written a lot of books.
Oh, he has written a lot of books.
Yeah, and I can highly recommend you. Riding the Tiger and the Buddha and Love. And he read quite a few books, and it's he was with his wife Hannah. And Hannah was a very, very big part of his journey. And I tell you, I had this very profound experience. Both when I was living in San Francisco, and my ego was also through the roof, even though I was practicing Buddhist. But I remember I called over and I said, I need to have a session with Ole. And said, no, you can't have that. And I said, yeah, but I'm Danish. I said, yeah. You cannot have that, but you can come and serve breakfast for him. And I said yes, but I was really like, oh, I don't want to serve breakfast for the Lama. And I don't know what I was thinking. My ego was through the roof. I ended up going over, and I literally just had to. They had prepared all the breakfast, and we were 6 people, and I just had to take it from the kitchen and into the table. Yeah. And I ended up sitting and talking to Ole and Hannah for 2.5 hours where we just spoke Danish. And, you would never have that access to him in Europe because there were thousands of people all over him all the time, right? Because he was such a powerhouse and you wanted to be close to the Lama. So, that was really beautiful. And at that time I could see that Hannah was not doing well. And she got cancer, and then she ended up retreating back in the Buddhist center in Copenhagen. And the stories people told about how she would go in every morning, despite having cancer, she would do the prostrations where we slide down, and she would do a round of that, which is 108, right? Until the last stage, you know, she was able to do that. And then, you know, the day when she was passing away, I came in. I was actually meeting up with a Buddhist friend that had been cured of cancer, and we were very close, and you know, he had really done well and spent a lot of practice also. So the first 3-4 years he didn't even get chemo, and then finally he got, and they removed it's lymph cancer. It can come back, but it got removed really fast. So we had to celebrate him. I come into the Buddhism in Copenhagen, and at the same moment, Ole comes down the stairs. And I also always had these moments where I would show up at a Buddhist course. Ole, he would come past. He would just show up. Like, it would always be like that. I had all these moments. I would go to the Buddhist center one day. I didn't even know, and then suddenly, oh, he was getting married to another woman after Hannah died. And they said, oh, can you bring the wedding cake out? We need someone to bring. And then I, of course, bring the wedding cake out and, you know, just serve it in front of him. Like, it would always happen like that. And maybe it was because I'm also Ole, I don't know, but I wouldn't say I'm privileged, but, you know, people often treat me well because I was Danish and also called Ole, you know.
Yeah, and so, where did he practice the most? He wasn't in Denmark, because I thought that he was most in Denmark. He was most in...
Yeah, so we have a Europe. Yeah, so he got really big in Germany. He is huge in Germany.
Oh.
And that's where, you know, almost every big German city you will have a Diamond Way Buddhist center and big centers. I think my guess is we own, I don't know, maybe more, but at least 50, if not 100 properties around the world. It's a big thing. I mean, there's a lot of very impactful people that have both donated land and donated money and to make this happen. And I tell you, the beautiful things is, you know, a lot of people that were searching for something, they found an incredible, powerful practice in meditating and being a Buddhist. And when you're around so many Buddhists, we were also very touching. We were hugging. We were very close to each other. It's not that thing you just sit and meditate and you're yourself and someone come like they do in the, what do you call them? The Vipassanas, where they come and, you know, hit you with a stick and all that. We were a little bit the wild Buddhist in a way, but practicing one of the most, the deepest and most profound practices, which is you know, we have this ground school we call the Nundro, where you practice 4 different meditations and you have to repeat the mantras 111,111 times. And I want to be honest, I'm not even done with that yet, you know. A lot of people, they dedicate and go all in and do it in 3-4 years. It's a very powerful experience just to go on that path, you know. So that's kind of the ground school, and then there are different levels and different transmission you can get from the lamas as you go to their lectures and to their retreats, right?
But what language did he spoke? Because he was most in Germany. What language was the common language he spoke?
I mean, in German he would speak German, you know. In German,
he could German.
Yeah. And then of course it'll be English, and it'll be English most of the time. Also, when he came to Copenhagen, you know, people from all over the world would travel and come, you know. So it was most often English, and in Germany it was often German, you know. And he would travel around, and there would be like 2,000 people, 1,000 people. I don't know, maybe if we had the New Year's party, maybe 5,000 people. Like it was, and we would all, you know, there would always be an opportunity. I mean, also for me, it was so, when I traveled around the world, you could also always contact a Buddhist center. You know, when I was down in Switzerland, you know, I would do some work in Basel. Then sometimes I would really, it was so nice to come to the Buddhist center. You would meet people, you could practice there, you could sleep over. and often to a fraction of the cost. But it was not that, it was that experience you had with the Lord. Then you would often hang out, you would go for dinners in the evening. In San Francisco, we also went and we were partying and having fun down in the San Francisco downtown. And after a Buddhist course, he would do skydiving with a lot of Buddhists also, and he almost died because he was in so much bliss. He was up there, so he forgot to how do you say, to yeah. So he landed very hard on the ground and had a. I remember he showed me in Copenhagen the metal he just had operated out of his hip, and I lifted it, and I think it was probably 2 kilos or something like that. It was insane. So, and he was physically so strong. So back in the days, he would get on the dance floor, and we'd be like 30 guys trying to see if we could put him. I mean, serious, trying to. And he would just like boom, 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 boom. He was so strong, So he was also controversial because he would voice his own opinion. He was voicing his own opinion about Islam, and sometimes to a point where I did not agree with him, and I found it a little bit. It was a little bit sad because he was right. A lot of the things he said and predicted has happened, right? I mean, I don't know how it is in Norway, but in Denmark right now, there are parties that are voted into potentially can be a part of the government that wants more Muslims out than into the country, right? So he had a point about what he said. For me, it didn't land well because for me, it was not Buddhism, It was his own opinion that he brought into the practice, and that was sometimes that made me a little bit like, I would wish he didn't have that need to do that. But he was also a person who wanted to, speak his word and So, but he changed my life, really changed my life, in terms of experiences something deeper. And when I met the 17th Karmapa, I had this insane experiences with him where I remember I was in France, and then I was thinking maybe I should ask him a question if he sometimes get angry.
Yeah.
And what he does when he gets angry. And then I was like, no, I don't want to ask him that. I actually want to ask him, sometimes I meet people and I get triggered by them, and how to deal with that, right? So I raised my hand, and he's like, yeah, okay. And I say to him, hey, Karmapa, so I just wanted to know, sometimes I get triggered by people when I meet them, and I can not always figure out what it is, how to deal with that, right, from a Buddhist perspective. So the first things he says is, I sometimes also get angry. And then he answered that question first. And then he answered the second question, which was the question I asked him. The first question was just in my mind.
Yeah.
Right? So you have these experiences. And when he had answered, I was thinking, did this happen? Is this real? Is it something that I'm creating in my own mind? Or was it? And then I had a girlfriend with me and I asked her, was that a delivery? I asked him, did he respond the way that I thought he responded? He said yes. I said, okay, this is insane. So you would have all these things. I would go up to him, and I hadn't met him for like 2 or 3 years. And when you come close to Karmapa specifically, it is also very, very intense. I mean, the power of the energy. It's almost like he has a level of compassion times 100, and I think he gives you a taste of that when you're close to him, right? So you have that immediate experience, And I remember I wanted, so you should not say something that is too complicated, because then when you come there, suddenly you cannot remember what you wanted to say, right? Because it goes so fast, and so I wanted to say to him, just say to him, hey, Kamapa, how have you been? And I come up and I look at him, and I'm about to say it, and then he says to me, hey, how have you been? And I walked down, and then he gave me the blessing, and we talked a little bit, and I was like, did that just happen? So there was all this in Spain, at some point, there's also typically, often you'll see the eagle or big birds flying around when Karmapa is giving teachings, because the eagles, they're attracted by the power field that he creates. And especially when we do these transmissions where he evoked different Buddhas at different qualities, right? So often if you're going into a transmission with him where, let's say it's Diamond Way, the Diamond Buddha, that is the Buddha that is really creating a lot of transformation and cutting away all the disturbing emotions so you can see things as they truly are, right?
Yep.
So if you're part of that transmission, often you would, I would often get sick either before or after.
Yeah, yeah.
Then you would have another transmission which is about the Buddha of love and compassion, and that would just be incredible, blissful, and really open your heart. So depending on what it was, you would always have a deeper impact on you. And he would sit there and do a lot of things in Tibetan with the rice and also just his hand gestures. If you look at them, they're out of this world, right? It's so precise and so beautiful. So I always go to these really, really powerful empowerments, is what we call them, initiations. And then often these things will happen. And at some point in Spain, I come out of the tent and I look up, and people are pointing up, and normally a rainbow goes like this, but here you have a round rainbow around the sun, and you're like, is it something he creates for us, or is it actually real? So and you see also these lamas that dies, that their body can sit in meditation posture for days after they're physically dead.
Yeah.
They are showing off that, there's way more than we know, so it's, so it's been a fascinating journey with Ole, and I've gotten so many friends in Buddhism that last time I was in Spain with Karmapa, I think it was 2 years ago in Spain, where I came back and I started to meet a lot of these people I hadn't seen for years. It was just so nice to reconnect, and here where we are, and we connect on Facebook, and and now I don't know how many people. I was really close to go down to the Europe Center, and the challenge is right now I'm working on some really a lot of interesting things with my business and down in the Middle East and so on. So I could not. I just simply didn't have the time to fly down there and be there now, but I also realized that I had to also, I think, go through my own process with Ole and reflecting, and in Buddhism, it's not grief, in the same way about death. It is joy, and it's like a deep gratitude for everything. And now you also look back and you see a lot of the things that he said and what he did. He was so ahead of his time in many ways. And he was so accessible also. You could, if you hang out after the course, often you would end up partying with him. And I don't think it was until maybe 10 years ago we stopped with the alcohol, which I think it's good, but we had the most crazy parties after the 4 or 5 days of meditation, always, and he would be a part of that, He would join in and be full on, and yeah.
Okay, so he also drank alcohol.
At that time, he did, yes.
Okay, but is it only male lama? Are there any female lama?
Oh yeah, there's also female lamas, also in the lineage, I think, and but there's also a lot of the Rinpoches, they are males. I mean, that is typically how they also for some reason reincarnate, right? There's also a fascinating process with that, how they go and find them. They found and again, I don't know all the details, but one of our one in the lineage, he's a French boy, So I think that the Lamas came and knocked on the parents' doors at some point in France, and I don't think they were expecting that. They were told that their son was a reincarnation of a Rinpoche, and he have a big group of followers now, So it's quite fascinating, and I mean, there's so many things that the 16th Karmapa, there was a doctor that at the Chicago hospital where he ended up, leaving his body, that said that for 3 days his heart was warm. You cannot explain that from a Western medicine perspective, but of course they do these things. I think he wrote the day he would leave his body a year before. And I don't know who found that later or what it was, but so it's just fascinating to be, and often when you get the blessings from these people, magical things are happening. I mean, I wanted to just I run a charity, and I wanted to get closer to Karmapa, and I also wanted to give and support, and one year I was in India. I spoke to the German lady and I said, why don't we hang up this gigantic poster where people can support the school? It's Karmapa school. And we did that. And from that, we got really big donations. We also got some of the big companies involved because the Buddhists are working there. And then they saw an opportunity to also create projects that could then benefit the school, right? And before there was, I don't know, $75,000, maybe $100,000 in total landing at school, which is good for the school and the project, And I was just holding space for that, and especially people in the US, where I also have set up my charity, or the charity I started, could get tax deductions. Plus, typically, if you work in a US corporation, they will top up, right? So if you pay in $5,000, the company would pay $5,000. You will send $10,000 to the school, and it will only cost you $5,000, and then the deduction in tax you will get. So maybe it'll cost you $3,000 to send $10,000, right? So in that way, we got quite some good donations. And of course, this goes effortlessly because it's connected to Karmapa, and he has given his blessings. So you often also see that when you do good things,
Yeah.
they come back, and so it's quite a journey. I'm not practicing so much at the moment, but I really want to get back to my daily morning meditation Buddhist practice, because it's still one of the most powerful. We have the Diamond Way Buddhist meditation is absolutely incredible, because it's a meditation where you first you land in yourself, and then there's a build-up phase where you kind of make yourself ready to go into there's this 100-syllable mantra that you then repeat and repeat and repeat, and you can do that for 1 round or 2 rounds. 2 rounds maybe take 45 minutes. There's 108 on a mala, and then at the end of the meditation, you imagine, actually, this is, again, it's a while ago I've done it, I have to say, so But what you do is you imagine the Buddha on top of your head, and it puts the feet just on top of your head. And when you say the 100-syllable mantra, the Buddha on top of your head is kind of spinning around and creating this white nectar that fills up the Buddha entirely. And then at the end, the nectar goes into your head, and it goes in and it cleans your entire body. And it also goes under the earth, and it touches all the people, especially the people that needs to be touched, and some of the people you have resistance against, and you can also imagine it touches your family and the people around you. And then at the end, it closes up and it fills you up with that clean white nectar. And then at the very end, the Buddha melts down and become part of you. So you become a part of the Buddha. And I tell you, that meditation is very, very special. So I want to get back and start that tomorrow morning. That's my commitment to you. Yeah, I'll start tomorrow morning.
Listening to you, my heart is so open, and that's when my heart open like this, it's like this, what you're talking about is very high energy, and you have spoken about so many things, and I have experienced so many similarity to what you have spoken about. And also I particularly remember in 2019 when I was guided to sell my apartment, because I was on the dark night of the soul, as we call it, because all my programming went, it's kind of, everything was dark. So I was led out of my family home. I lived in an apartment, and I loved this apartment. It was beautiful view and everything. And then one day, you must sell this apartment. And it's like, I love it here. But I did it. So I put it out for sale, and I said, where am I supposed to go? And for 2 months, I didn't know. And people said, well, because I sold the apartment and I had still no place to go. Because you told the story, it's like you said a man prepared for something, but he didn't know. So I prepared for something and I had no idea. It's like, well, I have done, what is it? And then I was a little bit more than 2 months afterward, I was guided to Lingen. Here, I have rented a house since 2019. And here is the same energy. I call it the same energy as Sedona. I don't know if you have been in Sedona. But Sedona, yes. It is a spiritual place. I have never been, but when I tune into the people that have been in Sedona, and I tune into this is similar. So we have kind of a Sedona here and it's a couple of hours from Tromsø, where I actually live. But being here, it is like being in heaven. So I was guided here in 2019. So it's like, if you trust, but for this 2.5 months, it's like, where are you planning to move? And I said, well, I have so many choices, because I didn't know what to add. I couldn't say that, well, I'm just trusting something will happen. But it is very interesting to be on this journey.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I agree. And it's so beautiful when we have these moments in life where we don't know, but we just have to trust.
Yeah.
And things will unfold, exactly the way they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Right. And it reminds me, I was in 2020, what is the end of 2022? I was also guided to go down and sit for 2 weeks and wait for the eagles to fly around, and I went, and I always like to go to Sikkim because it's on the other side, but you have still the view to the Himalayas, and everyone goes to Nepal, right? But in Sikkim, you would walk up and you'll be by yourself, basically, and Guru Rinpoche, they said that he was the reincarnation of the Buddha. He was, I think it was 715 to 779, or maybe even less. Maybe he was 50, 60 only. But he came to Sikkim, and he pointed out 4 very high energy places, and so I would go to I think I went to 3 of them, and especially one of them, I would just go up like this for 4 hours, 5 hours, and you would just hire a shepherd, like a local guide, who not necessarily was a Buddhist, but knew how to get to the cave. And then, I came up and they said that they found a leopard there, and a lot of the big lamas has been meditating and doing their practice there. And you come in and you have to kind of almost on the ground to get all the way in, and just maybe 50, 75 meters in. And the guide, he turns a candle and you just sit there with a Buddhist statue of Guru Rinpoche. And it's also difficult to explain, but you can really feel the power there, right?
Yeah, I know.
There are these incredible power places around the world, including what you're describing, right? That is just, really, really magical if we find them, to be a part of that and to experience that. So you're lucky that you have that in Norway, yeah?
Yeah, and also we as human are this powerhouse. So we also can, as you said, you have been next to, and when I experienced this for the first time, it was in 2008, and I was alone on the mountain, because I love mountains. It's kind of my, I just love mountains. So I was on the mountains, and I had 5 kids, and I was kind of fatigued. It has been a lot. And I was on the mountain, and suddenly it kind of, something hit me, and then I was God, and I had so much power, and I started to cry because it was so big, and it's like I had never felt something like that. What is all of this? So it was the first real epiphany. I had, of course, all of us have happening, but that was kind of, what is this? And I had no idea. It was just, I was everything, and I had all the power. I was the light. I just felt like a son and like a God and like everything kind of. So it is kind of the power you describe. So all of us can experiencing, but probably for smaller periods. But that leaded me on the path, because that opened me, and I have been into that several times since. So it's like I have said, okay, I want to be sustainable in this. And here it is, because people say that we don't need your technique, we don't need you to do anything, we just need to sit around you.
Yeah.
So it is, I think that all of us have it in us. And we can say yes, because I also know that I have sometimes said, well, now I want to do this thing. So we are invited all the time, but we also have the free will, as you described so perfectly.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that I've also been contemplating a lot on I think in 2000 and when was that? Probably, yeah, I was 13. I met he's from the Bhakti Yoga. He's called Radhanath Swami. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but it was also I just came back to New York, and I was so jet lagged. I was flying around the world at that time all the time with the business that I've been in for 18 years around leadership and building resilience and capacity for leaders in these big corporates around the world. And I came to New York, and my friend calls me up and he said, "Oh, it's Thanksgiving." I was like, I didn't even know what Thanksgiving was. It's so embarrassing, And he's like, "Do you want to come down today? I'm just down the road from you." I was living in Soho at that time, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm just down 200 meters from you, and there's going to be a lot of people." And I was like, "I don't need a lot of people. I just need to rest." But then he said, "And there'll be a lama. There'll be a lama coming." A lama? She said, "What? Yeah, I don't actually. My daughter's been working with him, but you should come." So I came, and I was sitting and waiting, and then suddenly the lama he shows up, and I look into his eyes, and something immediately shifts for me. And he sits down next to me, and he starts to talk to me, and I didn't really know who he was. I didn't have no idea. He came in yellow robe, and we started to talk about our work, and he said, "Yeah, I also do something with corporates. Maybe I can introduce you to someone." And I didn't want to say yes because I wasn't sure who he was. And I remember that. And we ended up sitting, having a conversation, and the entire table was just sitting, probably 20, was forming like a circle around us and was just sitting listening and like, what are they talking about? And I ended up meeting him a few times the next few days. And as I went home, I looked him up, and, he's standing with Obama and Mother Teresa, and he's from Chicago, went to India when he was 18 to find his guru, right? And he found him. And now he's really big, very impactful in India and around the world. And I became really good friends with him. I go to India, and I was taking a yoga teacher training at his institute, and we came from Bali at that time, and I got really sick in Bali, and it was amoeba, and I thought I got, how do you say, antibiotic against it and all that. And I was just doing the yoga teacher training. I had diarrhea every day, but I was like, it's gonna be fine. On day 10, I just collapsed, and I ended up being getting the opportunity. They said I could choose whatever private hospital. I had a good health insurance, So, and they're good, very strong in Scandinavia, these health insurance.
Yeah.
So I ended up going. They said, "Oh, Radhanath Swami has a hospital. It's a spiritual hospital," and I was like, "Okay, I go there." I had no idea what to expect. And they ended up installing me at the top of the hospital in the suite where he would normally get his treatments.
Wow!
And his guru was on the wall. And one day I counted 8 doctors coming in, 8 different doctors in 6 hours checking in on me. So he knew that I was there. And one day I sat down. One of the main doctors sat down, and I said, "Tell me your story." And then he said, "Oh, yeah, it's quite incredible because we were 3 young doctors, and we were seeking, spiritually seeking, and we found Radhanath Swami, and we're just about to finish our first part of the doctor's training. And Radhanath Swami took us to the side, and he said, I want you guys to specialize in 3 different areas." And they were like, "Okay." He's like, "Yeah. You're going to run a hospital." And they're like, "What do you mean?" It's like, yeah, don't worry, just take the 3 different paths. And then when you're done, we're going to build a hospital. And, before he got a big piece of land. There was a guy that he has helped shift his life, a very wealthy guy, that ends up calling Radhanath Swami. And he said, "What can I do for you?" And he said, "Oh, you have that piece of land there near Mumbai. What about that?" And the guy's like, "Okay, I'll give you the land." And then before they know, they are building a hospital, right?
I love these stories.
Yeah, right. So, and what I want to say about that is, I'm always amazed about the power they have to attract. And to people just like, here you go, here you go, here you go, and it's all, good forces they do. So this hospital, all the doctors would go out in the weekends and help people that were, had what do you call it, grå stær, right, with the eyes, do eye operation. They would do all sorts of things. Their salary would be lower than a normal hospital, but they would all be connected to his practice, right? And if I was on the top, and my health insurance maybe paid $100 a day for everything, which was still a very good price, and I would make sure that at least 10 homeless people could get access to the hospital because I paid so much more than. So they have subsidized, it's like different prices from different categories. And it will go back to the whole sustainability model.
Wow.
I ended up losing 15 kilos in 2.5 weeks. I was 69 kilos. I'm 84 now. So you can imagine how thin I was. And I come back to the ashram, and Radhanath Swami is there, and he meets me, and he said, "Okay, so I see you lost some weight," and he started to laugh. And I was like, why, what do you? And he was like, and he's like, "Yeah, purification. He has this a little bit Indian, even though he's American, you know." And I was like, "Oh, wow, yeah, that makes sense." And yeah, so I mean, it's just it's quite incredible how these, you know, and that's what I love about being connected to lineages and that have been going on for generations, because they are bringing, of course, all that power into the lineage. So when you practice, you get an experience of that. And I'm not comparing and saying something is better than others, you know.
I understand.
Is more a friend, and my deep practice is definitely Buddhism, and my connection is definitely Karmapa, and I have experiences always with me, you know. When I ran a marathon at some point, I said to Karmapa, you know, you need to take me the rest of the way. My body cannot. And he took me the last 5K in New York Marathon, where I barely could, you know. So all these experiences you have where he's just there, you know. It's
I see what they do, and I have gone into theology and studied some of the theology, because I think that is fascinating, because I have experienced so many miracles. We call it miracles, but what you explained, we call it kind of miracles. But I hear that they also operate beyond time, because they know the future. As I have also told a lot of people, why do you tell this? Because when you are in this place also, it is so easy. I say, well, just do that, because it is kind of, but we have a choice. And as he told it through, take this subject and this, because you know this hospital. So it is, I have said that I'm mostly in the here and now, but also a lot in the future, because what I have lived is in the past, and that's why I created hell on earth, because I was in the past recreating it. And so I have done that, just as you said, the Lama did. So he had experienced that. So now, instead of being in the past, I'm in the here, and I pull the future. So that's what I hear from your story. He also pull the future into the now.
Yeah. That's actually beautifully described, and I think they just have the possibilities to do that, and I'm always fascinated about that, especially when they come from the right place, where it's not about, you know, neither Karmapa nor Swami. I mean, every time the Swami get a gift, he would say thank you, and then he would pass it on to someone else. Like he would sleep on the floor with all his practitioners, you know. He will sit and eat, you know, with them. He doesn't own anything. Maybe he owns a phone today, but like nothing in his name. I mean, it's very humbling to be around these people that are so incredibly powerful, but don't have the need to show off or to have ego, because there's also a lot of, you know, you see, especially in the yoga world, right? How many that has, you know, when they get into power, then they cannot control it anymore, and they do things that are not, you know, serving humanity, you know. So yeah.
Well, I have enjoyed this conversation. So, and also I was reminded, the podcast that was 2 weeks before this, I spoke with a man, Brett. His name was Brett, and he has been deep into drugs, deep into criminality, all this, and now he's kind of becoming a lighthouse. So it is, I love this story, and he is homeschooling his kids, and being a father, that's the thing that's changed him, and it changed more and more and more and more. So we see a lot of, if you can see sickness and all these hard lessons, it's never too late to shift. Never too late.
No, for sure not. And, you know, and I also believe that we go through all these experiences because we have to learn, but also because we have to pass it on. I mean, like, it's much more fascinating to be around a person that have really gone through a lot of interesting experiences in life and learned from them and integrated them so they can then pass them on. And I myself, I'm married to Alva she's from Saudi Arabia. And I mean, it has not been easy with the family. But at the same time, I get these visions of that I have to do work down there. And I was like, what is it? No. What is this all about? And now we are potentially landing some really, really interesting business down there. And of course, it makes totally sense, you know. And she's giving birth to our baby, hopefully in October, my first baby, you know.
Wow! Yeah, congratulations!
Thank you. So it has also been, I mean, like going through all that the last 2-3 years and just finally getting her to Denmark and, you know, getting the approval. We probably going to get that in a week. And, you know, that has been, wow, that's been one of the biggest transformations in my life. It's been tough, but I also know I had to go through that to also understand that part of the world. And there's so much depth and mystics, and it's a very, very interesting part of the world that most of us in Scandinavia, we have no clue about. We just see women being in burqa, women being suppressed. And, you know, the reality is women down there, they're very powerful, you know, including Arva's mom, you know. So it's so fascinating, the journeys that, and I met Arva in India after the thing with the eagle. Out of the blue, I met her, you know. And now we're married, and you know, we are creating a little family here. So it's also just fascinating where life takes you. And, you know, and had to go up against the family and end up marrying her here, you know, has also been quite a ride, but it's totally worth it. And I see now that when everything is landing, you know. And I see that little, not hopefully, but we think it's going to be a girl. Let's see. That would be a beautiful healing for both Arva and I, but especially also towards her family. You know, they're already starting to really soften off and being very sweet. And so it's I just find it fascinating. My life sometimes takes us that.
Can I give you a direct message?
Yes.
I don't know if you have heard the term homo luminous. I use it because it is kind of the future human. It's kind of when we are becoming more light. And homo luminous is also the same as Christ consciousness, because you kind of know, you just know who you are. And from 2024, it became more homo luminous babies. So I just saw your daughter as a homo luminous, so it's kind of, she carried the Christ consciousness. I have met 3 of them, and I was in tears first time. I met a boy, Dennis, in 2024, and it's like, wow, and the stamina, and he was totally different. So there are more and more kids birthing into the earth that are, they just hold the light in another way.
Yeah. And this is also
a blessing.
And this is what I see. She's going to be Maya, M-A-Y-A, if it's going to be a girl. Let's see. But on Friday, we went out. My old boss from the bank, I used to be a banker, invited us out to a restaurant called Maya, M-A-Y-A, spelled the same way. I looked at the restaurant up, I was like, okay. I walk home, I meet one of the nutrition experts. He has done a lot of TV programs and stuff, and they're really good. I've used him for a lot of my trainings around the world. I reconnect with him just on the street. I meet his girlfriend, and I said, "Oh, what is your name?" "It's Maya." I say, "How do you spell it?" M-A-Y-A. It's like, okay. This weekend we were hanging out with my ex-girlfriend from California, Avra and I. Her friend Arva is working in a hotel, and Arva and I, we are having a chat, and there's this little girl that looks 95% of what an AI-generated image I'd just done the week before. She's behind that glass, and I said, "Who's that girl?" And it turns out that it's my ex-girlfriend's friend's daughter. And I end up hanging out with her the entire weekend. And I got so close to her, and there was just that connection, right? And I was like, okay, I think it must be a girl. You know? And I've seen her. I've seen exactly what you are describing. I've seen her being an incredible, powerful little girl with probably what you described.
Yeah, she's a homolo. Yeah, so we just feel, because it's kind. We think, if we think with our old mind, it's like we are supposed to learn so much to them, but it's the opposite. Yeah. They just hold the space. So it's kind of, they are a field holder, because they hold the new structure, just being them.
Yeah. And you know, I've already had several situations where I have asked her for advice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she's not even there. I mean, and I'm like, wow.
Yep. Yeah. They are born as powerhouse. One of the baby actually healed her mother because she died in labor. But her baby, she said, I know that this sounds crazy, and the doctor said, you were dead. We don't understand that you lived. And she said, well, I couldn't tell them, but it was my daughter that kind of healed me, saved me. So it's, yes, they are powerhouse from birth. So this, what's happening now, it is, so all that we have spoken about, it is an invitation to go on this path, because we are all invited to walk this path as you have described today.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, and also just being aware that it can happen.
It can happen
anytime, any day, you know. Sometimes it's, as you say, you stand on the top of the mountains. I think for me, it has been a lot through the connection and transmission to also other people that I've been guided to, you know, to then meet certain people or to go certain paths. And I've also had some experiences like you, of course. But it's just incredible to be around these very, very powerful people that you know, can inspire one to really open up and trust and go on our, you know, own exciting journeys and manifest and take some steps out in the world and see, okay, what does that do? Okay, go to India, meet Avram. Okay, I go to Saudi Arabia. Okay, I meet, you know, like, I go to New York, I start my business, I get a blessing from the Lama, and boom, I land a business. Like, all these things are, it's just been so fascinating that we can experience that, you know. So yeah, and I feel the same with you. We should definitely talk more. Maybe we should even come up and say hi to you at that special place you live. I think that could be really cool. Spend some time with you up there. Yeah.
But we will say, and I will say, thank you so much, Ole, for everything that you have shared on this podcast. It has been, wow, I love this conversation. I hope the listeners love it as much as I have.
Thank you so much. That was really, really, really joyful.
Thank you for listening to the Divine Design podcast with Ann-Peggy Divine. Join us next Sunday for another heaven on earth unfolding conversation. With grace, reverence and unity, may the path of your divine design light the way. From the divine in us to the divine in you.